Just a couple of others, if I may. He has a tremendous leniency in the din of Hatmana. There's a din called Hatmana on Shabbos, which is basically that you're not allowed to insulate food. So bishul is cooking. Then the Chazal created 3 Isuri D'Rabbanan to protect the malacha of bishul. They were worried shehiyah, which means you're not allowed to leave something cooking from before Shabbos unless it's reached a certain level of cooking. You can't put raw food or sort of partly cooked food on the hot plate or in an oven from before Shabbos and allow it to continue cooking. Chazara, that means you can't return something to the flame once you've taken it off on Shabbos unless you fulfill certain conditions. Hatmana, you cannot insulate food on Shabbos. You can't wrap it in towels. People wrap things in towels and put them on a hot plate. This is a problem with Hatmana. And the din is that you're allowed to do, Hatmana means to hide, is it? Or to wrap. You're not allowed to do it b'davar hamosif hevel. That means something that's going to add to its heat. So if you had a hot water bottle and you wrapped it around something, that would be mosif hevel. And you can't do that even from before Shabbos. And you can't do something b'davar she'eino mosif hevel. That means you can't use a towel and wrap it around, even though the towel itself doesn't add any heat. You can't do that on Shabbos, but you can do that before Shabbos. So the question is, what happens if you wrap something in a towel and then you put it on the hot plate? Is that towel considered to be davar hamosif hevel or davar she'eino mosif hevel? Because the towel itself doesn't generate heat, or foil itself doesn't generate heat. But when you put foil around something or a towel around something and you put it on a heat source, it helps it get hotter, right? Because you've covered it and it creates like a layer in between the pot and the thing.
It's a conductor.
So it's a conductor. So the question is, does the thing that's covering the pot have to be mosif hevel? Does it have to itself add heat? Or no, when you add it together with with the heat source that's under it, it's mosif hevel. So most poskim hold, no. You know what? It makes sense for us to say when you wrap it in a towel and you put it on a hot plate, that becomes mosif hevel because you've just. And that's what most people say. You can't wrap something in a towel and put it on a hot plate, even from before Shabbos. That would be a problem. Rav Ovadia has a psak based on a Ramban of all people. So this is the thing. So what he did was he used to pull things from the Rishonim, even though the Shulchan Aruch said something different. He used to pull out the Rishonim. The Ramban says something. He has a phrase. He says shehir lechud, v'hatmana lechud. The Ramban says, look, it's one thing putting it on the hot plate from before Shabbos. That's shehir. That's putting something on the hot plate and allowing it to cook as Shabbos comes in. The second thing you're doing is hatmana. You're wrapping something in a towel. These are 2 separate actions. We don't allow we don't allow them to come. We don't mix and match these 2 things. We don't say that just because you've wrapped it in a towel and put it on the hot plate, therefore it is heating the towel and the towel is becoming hot and it's mosif hevel. No, you're allowed to wrap it and put it on from Shabbos. It's very interesting that he pulls it from the Rishonim. And one final thing I would say of his psakim, there's a tremendous psak that we often use. I don't think it will affect anything you're eating tonight. That there's a halach in the Gemara, dagim sha'alu b'ka'ara shel basar, which means you want to cook something parav in a fleshik pot. Okay, so fish in a meaty pot. You want to cook something parav, say a potato, in a fleshik pot, and then you want to eat it with milk. So can you do such a thing? Right? That's the question. So does everyone do that in their home? You cook a potato in a fleshik pot and then you eat it with cheese? Anyone do that? It's not really common practice. You do it. So it's not common practice to do that. And the reason it's not common practice is because the Ramah says you're not allowed to do it. The Ramah says unless the pot is Eino Ben Yomo, unless the pot hasn't been used for 24 hours, and it's clean. If it's not been used 24 hours, so it's not fleshik really anymore. So you can cook the potato in there. You take the potato out, put it on a milky plate, and then you can eat it with cheese. If it's not Ben Yomo, if it hasn't been used 24 hours, but if it's been used for meat in the last 24 hours, even if it's clean, the Ramah says we don't do that. Okay, unless you've already done it by mistake and you mixed it with the cheese, so then we'll allow you to eat it. You don't have to throw it away, but you can't do it principally. You can't do it,
After qualifying, we listen to the Ramah.
Yeah. Right. So Rav Ovadia says. So the Mechaber says, "Dagim sha'alu b'ka'ara shel basar mutar lachem b'kutach." If you cook fish in a parav pot, you can eat it with milk. Okay. The Shulchan Aruch says you cook fish, you cook parav. That's the Ramah. So Shulchan Aruch, writing just before the Ramah, says if you cook parav in a fleshik pot, you can eat it with cheese. Okay?
Even if it's Eino Ben Yomo.
Even if it's Eino Ben Yomo. Yes, and the Ramah qualifies and says it has to be Eino Ben Yomo. But the Shulchan Aruch says you can do it. Okay, but the lashon of the Shulchan Aruch is dagim sha'alu. Alu is a past tense. Dagim sha'alu. You already cooked the parav in the fleshik pot. So then you already cooked it and you go, you know what, I want to eat it with cheese. I cooked my potato in a fleshik pot, I want to eat it with cheese. Okay, we'll allow you to mix it with the cheese. It's past tense. It's almost like the Shulchan Aruch implies that you can't do it. You can't deliberately do it. You can't say, I want to eat my potato with cheese. I'm going to cook it in a fleshik pot. But Rav Ovadia says that's what he means. Rav Ovadia says you can do it deliberately. You can walk into your kitchen and say, I want a potato with cheese, My milky pot is dirty. I can't bother to wash it. I'm going to cook it in a fleshik pot that's clean. It has to be clean, but that's ben yom. It's been used in the last 24 hours. For me, it's clean. I'm going to cook my potato in there and eat it with cheese. There's a tremendous kula. This power of leniency he used, it's a famous story that's come out after he died. I'm sure it was around when he died, before he died, but people have started to quote it that he was, after the 1973 Yom Kippur War, there were 1,000 women, more than 1,000 women whose husbands tragically didn't come back from war, and they were agunot, they couldn't remarry, and he spent about 10 years working through each case and finding a way for each of them to marry.
At the World Trade Center, they used a lot of his psakim.
Yeah, is that right? Yeah. So I saw that in one Yom a woman wrote to him and said, "I want you to answer my question for me." One final thing that I find fascinating, and this really is the last thing I'll say about Rav Ovadia, I find fascinating, he has a psak about brachot that I find very interesting. He talks about Shavuot night, that you make a bracha on a drink of water on Shavuot night. You're up all night. And in England, you're up 3 hours, and here you're up like 10 hours, something like that. So you're up all night, and you want to know, do you have to make another bracha on your next cup of tea in an hour and a half from now? So we all know that if you've eaten your lunch, you've eaten your meal, and you waited 72 minutes, right? You can't bench anymore, right? That's the thing we all learn, accuracy, whatever. But there is a limit to when you can make your bracha acharona. So when you bench after a meal, there's a limit in time. There's something called shir ikul, which means the amount of time it takes for your body to digest. You need to be hungry again. You're no longer saver. You're no longer satiated from that meal. You can't bench after that time. You're stuffed. But bracha rishona, so you make a bracha on something at the beginning of the day. Okay, make a bracha on my drink. Can I carry on eating the whole day and drinking on that bracha? There's a machlokah. The Magen Avraham says that there is also a limit to the bracha rishona. It's still 72 minutes. So Rav Ovadia says, you know what you can do? A patent, right? It's a trick. What you do is you make your bracha rishona and you have in mind all the drinks I'm going to have all night. Okay. Before 72 minutes, well, before 72 minutes you eat borei nefashot. Okay, you say your bracha acharona, you bench. You want to have another drink? Carry on drinking. You don't have to make another bracha rishona. It's a tremendous. To me, it's tremendous chiddush that you can make a bracha acharona that doesn't cut your bracha rishona. Meaning you carry on drinking on the basis of the bracha you made already at the beginning. You've just benched. You've just made your bracha acharona. But he says no. You only made the bracha acharona because you were worried that you would lose that bracha acharona if you didn't make it. Because the 72 minutes is going to pass and you're going to be in trouble because there is a limit to how long you can make the bracha acharona for. But the bracha rishona, he says, that goes on all day. So you just carry on all day. That's what he says. Anyway, that's what I want to say about Rav Ovadia, and that is, he's been a tremendous influence on me.
Can I add one little
Please.
thing to what you said?
Please.
Because you started with Rashi, and you spoke about yourself, but of course, the way Rashi speaks, Pona Ziva, Pona Hoda, Pona Kvoda.
So there's nothing to do with that.
Sorry?
Go on.
Is that what you were going to